Welcome back. So I got a kind of a cool little project I'm working on. Redoing some fencing in the garden, making sure everything is square to the house, making sure the garden is square. And one of those kind of cool examples of, if you think back to when you were in school, probably learning math, probably learning geometry, and you said, when am I ever going to use this? Well, this is when. So here's my situation. I have a space that I marked out a couple years ago. It's 70 by 80 feet. Current measurement today is 69.5 feet, and the other side are the actual true 80. So very close to what I originally intended. Now, in order to guarantee that this is a square or a rectangle, about the only way to do it is to measure the diagonal. And if you measure that diagonal, that measurement will tell you whether or not these corners are actually square or are they skewed to one side or the other. Now, unfortunately, I can't measure the diagonals in my garden at the moment because I have 6-foot tall dill plants and a 10-foot tall high tunnel. So I have a method today, 2 of them actually, that I am using to determine whether or not my current garden posts are square, so that when I add the new posts, which are going to be out from the current ones, I know that they too are in line where they're supposed to be, and I don't run into the issue I did this spring, which was that this bed here, if you look from this corner to this corner, is actually 1 foot to 1.5 feet in this way from where I thought it was, based on the location of this fence, which means that I can't actually build the garden beds that I intended because I don't actually have the square footage, the space that I thought I did. So here's what I'm going to do. So using geometry, there are 2 ways that I can determine whether or not a square angle exists. The one that I like, because it's pretty straightforward, is called a 3-4-5 triangle. And it states that if you have a side that is 3 feet long, a side that is 4 feet long, the diagonal is going to be 5 feet long. So I can go out to one of those corner posts in my garden. I can measure 3 feet this way, 4 feet that way, and that measurement, if this is a 90-degree angle, which is what we want, is going to be 5 feet. The other method, which uses any measurements, says that if I have a distance here, we'll call this a squared, and I have a distance here, again, this can be anything, b squared, that distance there, that diagonal, is c squared. And c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Now, that obviously works with any measurements. I'm going to go with this method. I'm going to go with a 3-4-5 triangle, see if the measurements that I have are close. They do not need to be perfect, because after all, this is a garden fence. But if they are, that's going to tell me that I more or less have a square garden space, and I can set up my new posts based on the existing 4 corners. So the plan is to take these corners and come out and then end up with a 74 by 84 foot garden. And the logic here is that I can set those posts right now, and I can use the current garden fencing, which is in some cases quite damaged, as trellising in the future. So let's see if that works. All right, so there's my corner post. That marking tape is 3 feet from the corner post. This marking tape is 4 feet. So if I have a square corner, I should have a 5-foot spacing between those 2. And I'm at, we'll say 59 and a half inches. That's pretty darn close. Probably about as close as I'm going to get. There's a little bit of play in the fences, which is fine. But that's my first method. So I can do that on all 4 sides of the fence. I can check any angle that way, and I can tell, does the angle that I have from these posts, both directions, is it square, and therefore are my measurements going to lead to a rectangle or a square, or something that's skewed one direction or the other. The second method that I use to tell whether or not things are squared up how they're supposed to be requires some type of structure, something that I know is parallel and is close enough. So in this case, I have my greenhouse on one side and I have a fence over here on the other. So if I have these structures parallel, if everything is lined up, a measurement taken back here, so we're at the front of the greenhouse now, and the measurement taken back there, greenhouse to fence, should be identical. Let's see. So why am I going through all this using geometry in the garden? Well, 3 reasons. 1, posts I put in originally were 3-inch round posts. They are not terribly sturdy. They're okay, but I'd like everything to be a little bit more robust, and I would like the fencing to be installed correctly. When I did this, I had no clue what I was doing, so put in a bunch of staples, let it go, nothing is twisted correctly, and the fences, not surprisingly, are a little bit flimsy as a result. Second big reason is that I need trellising. I desperately need stuff in the garden ready to go for beans, peas, cucumbers, and I have all this fencing that's already here, so I would like to utilize it. I don't just want to get rid of it, but I also want the garden space to be a little bit more organized and look just overall aesthetically a little bit nicer. I want to do new gates. I want those gates to be self-closing so we can kind of walk in and out and not worry about stuff. And the only way to really do that is to go back to the beginning, do it correctly from the ground up. And reason number 3 is maintenance. When I put these fences in, I did not realize that you normally put them a couple inches off the ground so that you could weed whack under them. So these are at ground level, which means I have grass and weeds and in general a mess. So that's the game plan. I don't know if it's going to be a fall project or a spring project. At least the 4 corner posts are going to be in the next couple of weeks because I have the materials and I don't want concrete sitting out all winter for obvious reasons. But anyway, so there you have it. Using geometry in the garden, kind of a cool project and fun to figure some of this stuff out. See that stuff I put in when I didn't know what I was doing is actually looking pretty good and is square. Kind of fun. So anyway, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.